how would what we think of as military defense, how would that work? Well, I think most anarcho-capitalists think that insurance companies would play a major role in this area. So let me just give you the basics of it. So I don't know if you can see that, but that's supposed to be the prudential. Where's my laser pointer? Oh, there it is. Over there. So the idea is, let's say you got a big city and their owners, the people who own the big buildings, the skyscrapers. And so they take out insurance for things like, what if there's a fire? So they take out fire insurance. What if there's, other sorts of disasters that could strike? They might have various types of insurance policies. And then you say, well, what if bombers fly overhead and drop bombs and blow up our skyscraper? That would kind of be a pain. And so you say, well, how do we, just like a fire would be devastating, that would be devastating if foreign bombers took out our skyscraper and ruined our property. So they could go to Prudential and take out large policies against that, saying, in the case that our property is damaged because of foreign military action, you indemnify us. So now, Prudential has, if you know the economics lingo, has internalized the externalities there. If they have policies from a large group of clients in the same region, now dollar for dollar, Prudential is suffering the loss from anything that happens to any of their clients. So it's now in Prudential's interest. They could say, well, what if so they might be on the hook potentially, let's say, for $1 billion. Like if some foreign army comes up or Air Force comes in and just starts carpet bombing our city, we're going to be out $1 billion. And then you could run the numbers, like what's the chance of that happening? And well, that they're not too hostile or they're this hostile and the leaders are making really aggressive speeches saying that we stole their land or whatever. And it looks like they're trying to drum up their own population in a pretext to invade. This isn't good. We're just sitting ducks right here. So what could they do? They say, well, we're on the hook for $1 billion. If we just spent a few $100 million, we could really make it hard for them to do that. We could buy surface-to-air missiles. We could buy our own, enemy fighters or aircraft fighters. We could get radar installations. We could maybe get naval vessels that were putting out mines in case they're trying to send their navy in and so forth. So the point is, if you ran the numbers, they would be the ones who would actually be funding the purchase of military hardware, and they would be doing it in a competitive market. It wouldn't just be, if they could do it more cheaply, they would get to pocket the difference, is the point. Now, I don't think you would see huge standing armies. And they certainly wouldn't have swastikas, right? Just because that's bad for business. But especially if it's the Guido Hulsmann agency, that's just that his marketing people would say. All right. So, and why wouldn't they have that? Is it just because I want to say, well, we want to make sure we don't end up like the Nazi? No, because just think of how ridiculously expensive that would be to have that huge of a workforce. It would be much more efficient and cost-effective, I think, to have a smaller group of professionals who were supplemented with extraordinary capital goods and tools and equipment, and that was the way they would repel the hordes of incoming invaders if that's what a state was going to throw against them. All right. Now, on this point, let me just go off on a little bit of a tangent. As an economist, I really think the way warfare is treated in the popular imagination, even like in things where we're supposed to be rooting for these guys, it's just crazy. Like, a few years ago, it was really rampant where there were all these Hollywood blockbusters showing, the movie would be building up, and then at the end there would be these grand epic battles where you'd have thousands of people on this side and thousands of people on this side, and then they just go, oh, and they run at each other. And I'm just thinking the best you can do with the thousands of incredibly productive people on your side, those resources that are like computers and very creative things, is to say, let's all just sprint into a wall of swords. That's crazy. That is just the stupidest thing imaginable, right? In terms of, if you, especially like in the Civil War, the war between the states, the War of Northern Aggression, whatever you want to call it, on paper, the southern states should have easily been able to survive. They should have easily fended off the invasion from the north. And if you wanted to, so how did they lose? Well, look what they did. They went around and basically at gunpoint rounded up all their able-bodied men and then said, okay, you see these cannons? Let's go. Like, if you were a spy sent by Lincoln to destroy the fighting power of the Confederacy, what better thing could you do than to say, okay, we could just do guerrilla warfare, we could just take pot shots at their commanding officers, then run away, like we did in the Revolutionary War against the British, Or we could all get into a single file line, put on nice bright colors to make sure they know who we are, and then march at them and maybe yell stuff at them, and maybe that'll work. I mean, that's crazy, just marching into their guns. That's crazy, when they're clearly more better equipped than we are. Right? So the point is that the conventional warfare, the type of warfare in which states engage, that's crazy, and I don't think in a free society you would see us copying their methods, only it would be private. I think we would do things completely differently. It would be like, I think, the Vietnam War, except the technological roles would be reversed, right? So you would have the invading state would have all these big bombs and have all kinds of troops and stuff, whereas the resistance would be guerrilla warfare, doing all these sorts of decentralized things that was hard to fight, except the anarchist society would, other things equal, be a lot more technologically advanced. And so I think when you see well, I'm getting ahead of myself. We're going to have a slide at the end about this stuff. Okay, whoops, I skipped one point here. Down here, what about public goods? I just want to mention, when you bring this stuff up to academic economists, they think they have a trump card. They say, no, military defense is the epitome of a public good. It can't be provided in the private sector. Right? By a public good, they mean that once you provide it, you can't exclude others from being able to use it. And also, one person's enjoyment of it doesn't detract from somebody else's enjoyment of it. So if you you build this SAM site here, and that deters the enemy from coming in because they know, oh, we're going to lose a lot of our fighter pilots and our pilots for the bombers, and so it's not worth us going in there. Well, what if people could decide, well, we're not going to pay Prudential. We're not going to be part of their company anymore because we're just going to sit back and enjoy this public good. So that is an issue, but in practice, I think that it's overblown. That it's not, that military defense actually is a lot more of a private good than people normally think of. So especially for things like protecting shipping. Like if you're trying to ship merchandise across the ocean and you need to have a convoy of military vessels to provide an escort, clearly, if the people in the convoy aren't paying for it, you can just not protect them, right? So you can clearly exclude service there. Now, yeah, if you're going to have something like ICBMs and that's how you're going to deter a Soviet invasion, that it's kind of hard to restrict it to the paying customers versus you can't protect this half of the city from getting nuked and not protect that half. If you're going to protect the city from an incoming nuclear bomb, everyone's protected. That is true, but a lot of stuff in military defense isn't quite like that. Another example, if you have enemy troops marching, then clearly the people on the border of your region have to be paying customers. Otherwise, you would just pull back your own forces, further and let those outliers just get eaten up by the incoming hordes, right? So the point is, yeah, there is some slipperiness, and it's a public good in some respects, but it's not, if you actually think through the logic of it, it's not really as clear-cut as a standard economics textbook would have you believe. Okay, wouldn't warlords